Think about that honestly. Not 1 hour half watching something while scrolling your phone. Not 1 hour with a podcast running in the background while you pretend to work. Not 1 hour split between 3 browser tabs, 2 text chains, and a running mental commentary about everything else you need to do. One full, clean, uninterrupted hour, completely locked in on a single task. Your mind is present. Your attention is undivided. Every ounce of your mental energy pointed in one direction. When was the last time that happened? For most people, the honest answer is, I can't remember. And that is not a small problem. That is not a quirky personality trait. That is not just how things are in the modern world. That is a crisis. Because focus, deep, sustained, deliberate focus, is not just a productivity tool. It is the fundamental mechanism by which human beings turn potential into reality. It is the process by which ideas become products, intentions become skills, and ordinary people build extraordinary lives. And right now, in the most distracted era in human history, focus is the rarest and most valuable resource on the planet. The people who can focus, truly focus for extended periods on the things that matter most, are pulling further and further ahead of everyone else. Not because they're smarter, not because they work more hours, but because they can do in 2 focused hours what the average person cannot do in 8 distracted ones. This is not an exaggeration. This is measurable. This is real. In your future, the one you keep imagining, the life you keep planning to build, depends on whether you develop this ability or keep losing it. So today, we're going to talk about focus like it actually matters. Because it does, more than almost anything else. Let's go. Before we talk about how to fix your focus, I need to make sure you understand what you're up against. Because if you think this is just about willpower, just about trying harder to concentrate, you will lose. Every time, you're not dealing with a personal discipline problem. You are dealing with a trillion-dollar industry whose entire business model depends on capturing and monetizing your attention. And they're extraordinarily good at it. This is what economists and media theorists call the attention economy. The basic premise is simple. In the digital age, the scarce resource is not content, not products, not services. It's attention. Human attention is finite. There are only so many hours in a day, only so much mental bandwidth available. And every major technology platform, every social media app, every streaming service, every news feed is competing ferociously for a piece of it. These platforms are not designed to inform you. They're not designed to connect you. They're designed to hold your attention as long as possible because your attention is what gets sold to advertisers. Every feature, every algorithm, every design choice, the infinite scroll, the autoplay, the notification ping, the like button, exists for one purpose, to keep you looking. And here's what makes this genuinely dangerous. These companies employ some of the most brilliant engineers, behavioral psychologists, and neuroscientists in the world to make their products as addictive as possible. They understand the dopaminergic reward system better than most doctors do. They know exactly how to trigger the anticipatory dopamine spike that keeps you scrolling, the same neurological mechanism that makes slot machines so addictive. It's not an accident that checking your phone feels like pulling a lever on a slot machine. It is designed to feel that way. Former Google design ethicist Tristan Harris famously said that billions of dollars are spent engineering the other side of the screen specifically to keep you from doing what you intend to do. Think about how remarkable that is. Every time you sit down with an intention to work, to create, to think deeply, there are systems in place backed by enormous resources and intelligence, specifically designed to pull you away from that intention. This is the war on your attention. And most people are losing it every single day without even knowing the war exists. And the consequences go beyond productivity. Research in cognitive neuroscience has shown that chronic fragmented attention, the kind of attention pattern most people develop after years of heavy device use, doesn't just make you less productive in the short term. It neurologically degrades your capacity for sustained focus over time. A widely cited study from Microsoft found that the average human attention span dropped from 12 seconds in 2008 seconds by 2015. 8 seconds, less than a goldfish. And that was nearly a decade ago, before short-form video took over, before Reels, before TikTok, before every platform optimized for the 30-second content loop. Your brain is plastic. It rewires itself based on how you use it. And if you have spent years training your brain to expect a new stimulus every few seconds, to context switch constantly, to consume in fragments, to treat depth as uncomfortable and novelty as the default, your brain has been fundamentally changed by that training. The good news: neuroplasticity works in both directions. You can retrain your brain to focus, but it requires understanding what focus actually is and deliberately rebuilding a capacity that the modern world is actively trying to destroy. Let's get precise about what focus is, because the word gets thrown around loosely and that looseness costs us. Focus is not just not being distracted. Focus is not simply closing your phone and sitting at a desk. Real focus, the kind that produces genuine insight, mastery, and creative output, is a specific cognitive state characterized by the full allocation of mental resources toward a single objective, sustained over an extended period of time. Cal Newport, the computer scientist and author who has written more seriously about deep work than anyone I know, defines this state as deep work, and he describes it as the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. He distinguishes this from shallow work, logistical, administrative, low-effort tasks that can be done while distracted. And here is the central insight that I want you to hold on to. The world's most valuable work, the work that builds skills, solves hard problems, creates new things, produces genuine insight, is almost exclusively deep work. It requires the state of deep focus to produce, and it cannot be produced any other way. Think about what happens in your brain when you genuinely focus. When you enter a state of deep focus, your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for executive function, planning, and high-order reasoning, becomes highly active and highly coordinated. Neural networks that are normally competing for resources begin to synchronize. The default mode network, which is active during mind-wandering and self-referential thinking, quiets down. You stop thinking about what you had for lunch, what that person meant by that comment, what you need to do later. You are fully in the work. In this state, you can hold multiple complex ideas in working memory simultaneously, draw connections between them, evaluate them, and iterate rapidly. Problems that seem intractable when you're half-focused suddenly reveal their structure when you're fully focused. Creative connections that are invisible in shallow attention become obvious in deep attention. This is why brilliant people often describe their best work as almost effortless. Not because it was easy, but because they were in a state of full cognitive engagement where the work flowed from them naturally. Psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi called this state flow, and his decades of research showed that it is the highest form of human engagement, producing the most meaningful work and the deepest satisfaction a person can experience. You cannot reach flow in 8-second intervals. Flow requires uninterrupted attention sustained over time. Typically at least 15 to 20 minutes of continuous focus before the state begins to develop, and often 30 to 45 minutes before it deepens into its most productive form. And here's the brutal math. Every interruption resets the clock. Every notification, every context switch, every moment of checking your phone. It doesn't just cost you the seconds it takes. It costs you the entire rebuilding of the focus state. Research by Gloria Mark at UC Irvine found that after being interrupted, it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully return to task. 23 minutes. If you're being interrupted every 5 minutes, and many people with their phones on and notifications on effectively are, you are never in deep focus. You are in a permanent state of shallow, fragmented, cognitively diluted engagement. You are producing shallow work and wondering why your output never matches your potential. Deep focus is not a luxury. It is the mechanism of excellence. And without it, potential is just a word. Let's get specific, because focus doesn't just dissolve randomly. It is being systematically destroyed by specific patterns that most people have built into their daily lives. I call these the 5 focus killers, and I want you to recognize each one honestly. The smartphone in your pocket is the most effective focus destruction device ever created. Not because you use it, because it exists near you. A landmark study by researchers at the University of Texas at Austin found that the mere presence of a smartphone on a desk, even face down, even turned off, measurably reduced available cognitive capacity. Not because people were using it, just because it was there. The brain was allocating resources to the task of not picking it up. When your phone is within reach, part of your mind is always managing the temptation, anticipating the notification, mentally registered on the possibility of distraction. The cognitive load of resisting the phone costs you focus, even when you're successfully resisting. The solution is not willpower. The solution is distance. Physical distance. The phone has to leave the room. Modern knowledge workers switch tasks, on average, every 3.5 minutes. 3.5 minutes. And as we established, every switch costs 23 minutes of recovery time. The math is catastrophic. Context switching is cognitively expensive because it requires your brain to disengage from one task's neural activation pattern and re-engage with a different one. It's like spinning up a different program every few minutes. The overhead of the loading and unloading drains the system. Multitasking, as most people practice it, is not actually multitasking. It is rapid sequential monotasking, rapidly switching between tasks, and it is enormously costly to the quality of both. Research consistently shows that people who think they are good at multitasking are actually the worst at it. They're more distracted, less capable of filtering irrelevant information, and cognitively less flexible than people who rarely multitask. The solution is time blocking, dedicated, protected periods for single tasks, which we'll talk about in depth later. Your brain has a finite decision-making budget each day. Every choice, from what to wear to how to phrase an email to which task to work on, draws on the same cognitive resource. And when that resource depletes, your capacity for focused, high-quality thinking degrades significantly. This is called decision fatigue, and it is one of the least recognized contributors to poor focus. By the time many people sit down to do their most important work, often in the afternoon, after a day of meetings, emails, and minor decisions, their decision-making and focus capacity is already substantially depleted. This is why Barack Obama famously wore the same style of suit every day, why Steve Jobs wore his turtleneck uniform, why many of the world's highest performers ruthlessly eliminate micro-decisions from their lives. They are protecting their cognitive budget for the work that matters. The solution is to front-load your most demanding focused work into the first hours of your day, before the decision budget has been drawn down, and to reduce trivial decisions through routines, habits, and systems. David Allen, the productivity expert behind Getting Things Done, introduced the concept of open loops, incomplete tasks, unresolved commitments, unfinished thoughts that occupy working memory even when you're not actively thinking about them. Every time you start something you haven't finished, every commitment you've made that's untracked, every "I need to remember to" floating in the back of your mind, these are open loops, and they drain cognitive resources constantly in the background, like apps running silently and draining your battery. When you sit down to focus with 15 open loops running in the background, your working memory is already partially occupied by them. You're trying to run a high-performance program on a machine that's already taxed. The solution is a trusted capture system, a place where every open loop gets written down and stored outside your head. When your brain trusts that nothing will be forgotten because it's captured in a system, it releases its grip on those background processes and frees up the bandwidth for focus. This one gets overlooked in conversations about focus and productivity, but it may be the most foundational. Chronic stress floods the brain with cortisol, which directly impairs prefrontal cortex function, the exact area you need for deep, sustained focus. A chronically stressed brain is in a low-level survival mode, scanning for threats, reactive, short-sighted, incapable of the extended, calm, deliberate engagement that deep focus requires. Sleep deprivation compounds this catastrophically. Even a single night of poor sleep measurably impairs attention, working memory, and cognitive flexibility. Chronic sleep deprivation, the baseline state for many high achievers who treat sleep as optional, produces cognitive impairment equivalent to legal intoxication. You cannot focus at a high level while running on 5 hours of sleep and chronic cortisol. The hardware is compromised, and no amount of caffeine or willpower fixes compromised hardware. The solution is treating sleep and stress management not as soft lifestyle preferences, but as non-negotiable inputs to cognitive performance. Your focus is only as good as the biology supporting it. Now, I want to paint a picture of what a focus-optimized life actually looks like in practice. Not as an abstract ideal, but as a set of concrete, daily choices that create the conditions for deep work. This is not about becoming a monk. This is not about eliminating all technology, living in a cabin, or never checking your phone again. It's about redesigning the architecture of your daily life so that deep focus becomes your default state, not your rare exception. Let me walk you through the key elements. The focus block. The centerpiece of focused life is the focus block, a dedicated, protected, immovable period of time each day reserved exclusively for your most cognitively demanding work. Not email, not meetings, not administrative tasks. Your most important, most demanding, most value-producing work. For most people, this block works best in the morning. Ideally the first 2 to 4 hours of the working day, before the world's demands crowd in, before decision fatigue accumulates, and while the prefrontal cortex is at its freshest. But the optimal time varies by individual. Some people are cognitively sharpest in late morning, some in early afternoon. The key is to know your peak window and guard it ruthlessly. During the focus block, the rules are simple and absolute. Phone off and out of the room. Notifications disabled, door closed or location changed. A single task defined in advance. No email. No social media. No quick checks. Full presence, full attention, full engagement for the duration. Start with 60 to 90 minutes. As your focus capacity builds, extend to 2, 3, or 4 hours. Over time, with consistent practice, a 2-hour focus block will produce more valuable output than most people produce in an entire workday. Your environment is not neutral. It is constantly sending signals to your brain, signals about what behavior is expected, what is available, what the context calls for. A cluttered desk signals chaos and primes scattered attention. A clean, minimal workspace signals order and primes focused engagement. The presence of your phone signals availability and connection. Its absence signals depth and protection. Open browser tabs signal multitasking. A single document opens signals singular purpose. Successful focused people design their environments the way architects design buildings, with intention, with specific outcomes in mind, with an understanding that space shapes behavior. Design your physical workspace for focus. Remove everything that doesn't serve the current task. Put the phone in another room. Close all tabs except the one relevant to your work. Make your workspace a signal to your brain. This is a place where we go deep. If your workspace is unavoidably noisy or distracting, use noise-canceling headphones and ambient sound, brown noise, white noise, or instrumental music. Lyrics are cognitively expensive and compete with language processing. The physical boundary matters psychologically even when it's acoustic rather than spatial. Elite athletes don't walk from the locker room directly onto the field without preparation. They have warm-up routines, physical and psychological rituals that shift their nervous system from ordinary alertness into competitive readiness. You need the same thing for deep focus. A pre-focus ritual is a short, consistent sequence of actions that signals to your brain, we are shifting into focus mode now. It serves as a psychological on-ramp, transitioning you from diffuse, reactive mode into concentrated, proactive mode. It might look like this. Review your intention for the session. Write down specifically what you will produce. Make 1 cup of coffee or tea. Put on your focus headphones. Close all irrelevant applications. Take 3 slow, deliberate breaths and begin. The specific elements matter less than the consistency. Repeated consistently, the ritual itself becomes a trigger, Over time, just beginning the ritual starts to shift your brain toward the focused state before you've even started working. The focused life runs on a single, simple principle, one thing at a time. Always, not just during your focus blocks, as a general orientation to how you move through your day. When you're in a conversation, you're fully in the conversation. When you're eating, you're eating. When you're driving, you're driving. When you're exercising, you're exercising. When you're working, you're working. Single tasking is not just more productive. It is more fully alive. It is the practice of being completely present in your own life, of experiencing each moment with full engagement rather than half presence divided across multiple inputs. The habit of full presence in small things builds the capacity for full presence in large things. Every time you choose to be fully present, even for something minor like a 10-minute walk without your phone, you are practicing and strengthening the neural pathway of focused attention. Let's talk about what actually happens, neurologically, professionally, personally, when you commit to a life of deep focus over time. Because the benefits of consistent deep work are not just productivity gains. They are transformative changes in who you are and what you're capable of. The relationship between focus practice and skill development is one of the most well-documented findings in cognitive psychology. Anders Ericsson's decades of research on expert performance, which popularized the concept of deliberate practice, established definitively that the quality of practice matters far more than the quantity. Deliberate practice is focused practice, specific, intentional engagement with the edges of your current capability, with immediate feedback and conscious correction. It is the opposite of going through the motions, and it is the mechanism behind every form of expertise, from concert pianists to chess grandmasters to elite athletes to world-class surgeons. The difference between a professional and an amateur is not years of experience. It is hours of deliberate, focused practice. Two professionals with the same years of experience can have radically different skill levels if their practice quality differs. When you commit to focused work, you are engaging in deliberate practice. You are building genuine expertise, not just experience, but actual neurological wiring that makes you more capable. Myelin, the insulating sheath around neural pathways that speeds signal transmission, is literally deposited more thickly around pathways that are used with focused, effortful repetition. Deep work makes you biologically smarter at what you practice. Here is what very few people understand about the compounding effect of focused work. The outputs of deep focus don't just add up linearly. They compound. The insight you develop in this week's focused work session becomes the foundation for next week's deeper insight. The skill you build this month makes next month's skill building faster. The problem you solve through deep focus reveals the next, more interesting problem. This is how people develop genuine expertise and produce genuinely original work. Not by grinding longer hours, but by going deeper with consistent, focused engagement over extended time. Newton's development of calculus, Darwin's theory of evolution, Einstein's theory of relativity. These were not products of brilliant minds idly musing between meetings. They were products of extraordinary sustained focus. Darwin reportedly spent 4.5 hours per day on focused intellectual work, split into 2 sessions. He considered this his most productive arrangement, and in those 9 hours per week of deep work, he produced one of the most consequential intellectual achievements in human history. This is the power of consistency applied to focused effort. Not heroic hours, just consistent depth. There's a market dimension to this that is worth understanding clearly. The global economy is increasingly structured around cognitive work. And in cognitive work, the market rewards rare skills at a disproportionate level. Not average competence in many things, rare excellence in something that matters. Developing rare excellence requires deep work. There is no other path to it. You cannot become genuinely excellent at a complex skill through shallow, distracted, fragmented engagement. You can become mediocre that way. You can become competent, but rare excellence, the kind that commands outsized rewards, that makes you irreplaceable, that people seek you out for specifically, that requires depth. The ability to focus is itself becoming a rare and valuable skill, as the average person's capacity for sustained attention deteriorates. The people who can sit down, enter deep focus, and produce high-quality work on demand are becoming rarer and more valuable every year. Focus is not just a productivity habit. In the modern economy, it is a competitive advantage of the highest order. This is the dimension that surprises people most because we tend to think of focus as a means to an external end, a tool for producing more. But Csikszentmihalyi's research on flow revealed something profound. The state of deep engagement is itself one of the primary sources of meaning and satisfaction in human life. People consistently report their greatest moments of personal meaning and fulfillment not during passive leisure, not while watching television, not while scrolling, but during states of full engagement with challenging, meaningful work. The surgeon in a complex operation, the athlete at the limit of their capability. The programmer is solving a hard problem. The writer is fully inside a scene they're creating. A focused life is not just more productive. It is more meaningful. It is more fully alive. When you develop the ability to do deep work consistently, you're not just building a productivity skill. You are cultivating access to the most fulfilling states available to a human being. You are choosing a life of genuine engagement over a life of distracted consumption. That is a different order of benefit entirely. Let's get into the practical system. Because understanding focus is one thing. Rebuilding it in a world designed to destroy it requires a specific, deliberate approach. Here is a 5-part system for rebuilding and strengthening your focus capacity, starting from wherever you are right now. Before you can reclaim your focus, you need an honest picture of where it's currently going. Spend 1 week with a screen time tracking app. Most smartphones have one built in, and look without flinching at the data. How many times did you pick up your phone today? How many hours did you spend on social media? How many times did you interrupt focused work to check something? Most people, when they do this honestly, are genuinely shocked. The gap between how much time we think we spend on devices and how much we actually spend is enormous. The audit makes the invisible visible, and once it's visible, you can make intentional choices about it. After the audit, make deliberate decisions. Which apps deserve space in your life, and which are consuming attention they don't deserve. Delete aggressively. Move what remains off your home screen. Disable notifications for everything except genuine emergencies. This is not about becoming a digital ascetic. It's about being intentional rather than passive. Your phone should serve your life, not govern it. If your focus has been severely fragmented, if you can barely sustain attention on a single task for 5 minutes before the urge to check something becomes overwhelming, you need to rehabilitate it. The method is focus fasting, short, structured periods of deliberate, single-pointed attention, gradually extended over time. Start small, embarrassingly small. Set a timer for 15 minutes. Put your phone in another room. Close all tabs. Open the one thing you're working on. And for those 15 minutes, do only that thing. When the urge to switch arises, and it will within minutes, notice it, acknowledge it, and return to the task. After 15 minutes, take a genuine break. Then do another 15 minutes. Over days and weeks, extend the intervals. 20 minutes, then 30, then 45, then 60. This is exactly analogous to physical training. You don't begin a running program by attempting a marathon. You build capacity progressively, with deliberate effort and recovery. Focus capacity is built the same way. The critical element is consistency over duration. 15 focused minutes every day will rebuild your capacity faster than an occasional 2-hour attempt. Daily practice compounds. Sporadic heroics don't. Address the open loop problem directly. You need a single, trusted system where every incomplete task, commitment, idea, and I need to remember to lives outside your head. It doesn't need to be complicated. A simple notebook, a notes app, a task manager, whatever you will actually use consistently. The key is that it is universal. Everything goes in, trusted, you process it regularly, and external, it's not in your head. When open loops are captured externally, your brain releases its grip on them. The background mental chatter quiets. Working memory frees up. You can enter a focus session without the nagging feeling that you're forgetting something. Process your capture system daily, ideally at a fixed time, like the end of the workday, converting items into concrete next actions and removing completed items. This maintenance is what makes the system trustworthy. And a trustworthy system is what allows your brain to relax and focus. Block your day in advance. Every day, the evening before or first thing in the morning. Not a to-do list. A time-block schedule. Specific tasks assigned to specific time slots. Your focus block, your deep work period, gets the best hours, the uninterrupted hours, the hours before the demands of the day crowd in. Everything else, email, meetings, administrative work, shallow tasks, gets scheduled in the remaining time. Time blocking does two critical things. First, it makes the decision about what to work on before you sit down to work, eliminating the cognitive cost of figuring out what to do in the moment. Second, it creates a concrete commitment to your focus time that is harder to abandon than a vague intention. When your calendar says focus block, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., Chapter 3, you have a specific, pre-committed appointment with deep work. When you have only a general intention to work on writing today, the first distraction wins. The schedule is not a cage. It's a design. Design your days instead of reacting to them. This one is counterintuitive, but essential. Serious focus requires serious rest. The brain is not a machine that can be run continuously at high capacity. It is a biological organ that requires genuine rest to consolidate learning, restore cognitive resources, and prepare for the next bout of deep engagement. Research by Anders Ericsson on elite performers found that the best in every field, musicians, athletes, chess players, rarely sustain more than 4 to 5 hours of focused, deliberate practice per day. Not because they lacked ambition, but because that is the effective limit of deep cognitive engagement before the quality of output degrades significantly. Beyond your focus blocks, rest must be actual rest, not just switching to a different screen. Walking in nature, genuine conversation, physical exercise, unstructured time with no inputs. These activities genuinely restore the prefrontal cortex in ways that passive screen consumption does not. Many high performers protect their afternoons or evenings with the same intensity they protect their focus blocks because they understand that rest is not the opposite of performance. It is part of the performance cycle. Let's talk about the real trade-off honestly, because there is a trade-off. A focused life costs something. And if you're going to choose it, you should choose it with your eyes open. Developing deep focus means saying no to a lot of what the modern world offers as default. It means not being constantly connected and available. It means long stretches where you're not checking social media, not responding instantly to messages, not consuming the stream of content that everyone around you is immersed in. It means tolerating the discomfort of boredom, the uncomfortable, restless feeling that arises when you first stop reaching for stimulation. It means sitting with a hard problem long enough for it to reveal itself, rather than switching away when it gets frustrating. It means choosing depth when the entire world is optimized for breadth. There will be social friction. People will notice you don't respond instantly. They'll wonder where you are when you disappear for your focus block. Some will interpret your boundaries around your attention as rudeness. Some will be genuinely frustrated that you're not always available. And here's what I want you to hold on to through all of that. What focused work buys you is a different order of magnitude from what distracted availability costs. The person who protects 4 hours of deep work every day builds, over 10 years, a body of work, a skill set, a body of knowledge, a creative output, a professional reputation that simply cannot be built any other way. The person who is always available, always connected, always responsive, never disappears for 4 hours of deep work. That person 10 years later has been present for everything and produced nothing of consequence. The math is not even close. Over a lifetime, the opportunity cost of unfocused attention is staggering. It is the book you never wrote, the business you never built, the skill you never developed, the problem you never solved, the version of yourself you never became. Focus is not a nice to have. It is the gate through which every significant achievement must pass. And the world needs people on the other side of that gate, not people who consumed everything available to them and produced nothing. People who protected their attention fiercely enough to do the work that matters. People who disappeared into deep focus long enough to produce something real. Your future, the one you actually want, not the one that happens to you by default, is on the other side of that gate. I want to close the content portion of this video with a broader thought, not just about productivity, but about what kind of person you are becoming through the choices you make about attention. There is a spiritual dimension to focus that almost nobody talks about in productivity content, and I think it's the most important dimension of all. When you are fully focused, truly present with what you're doing, you are not just producing better work. You are experiencing your life more fully. You are here in this moment, in this task, in this problem, in this conversation. Not half here and half somewhere else. Not divided. Present. The unfocused life is, in a very real sense, an unlived life. It is a life spent everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. A life of half experiences, half conversations, half created work, half formed thoughts. A life in which you are physically present, but mentally absent for most of what matters. Think about the last meaningful conversation you had while also being on your phone. You weren't really in that conversation. Think about the last meal you ate while watching something. You weren't really eating that meal. Think about the last time you worked on something important while checking notifications every few minutes. You weren't really doing that work. The distracted life is a kind of slow disappearance, a gradual erosion of the ability to be where you are, doing what you're doing fully and completely. Reclaiming your focus is not just about becoming more productive, though it will absolutely make you more productive. It is about reclaiming your presence in your own life, about being genuinely here, genuinely engaged, genuinely alive to the experience of being you in this work, in this moment. The Zen tradition speaks of beginner's mind, the quality of full, open, curious engagement with whatever is in front of you. Children have this naturally. Watch a 3-year-old discover something interesting. They are completely there, fully absorbed, fully present, fully alive to the thing. That quality is not childishness. It is the highest form of human engagement. You can have it back, not by force, not by willpower, but by choosing consistently and deliberately to be fully where you are, to protect your attention as the most precious resource you have, to give your focus to what deserves it, and to let everything else wait. That is what a focused life is. That is what it means to focus like your future depends on it. Because your future does depend on it, and so does your present. Let me bring this full circle. The world is louder, faster, and more distracting than at any point in human history, and it will not get quieter. The forces designed to capture your attention are not retreating. They're growing more sophisticated, more personalized, more powerful every year. You cannot wait for the world to become a better environment for focus. You have to build that environment yourself, deliberately, every single day. But here is what makes this fight worth having. In a world of fragmented attention, focus is power. In a world where most people produce shallow work, deep work is rare and extraordinarily valuable. In a world where distraction is the default, deliberate presence is an act of genuine rebellion and a genuine competitive advantage. The people who understand this, who choose every morning to protect their focus blocks, clear their environments, enter deep work, and stay there, these people are not just more productive. They are building something. They are becoming someone. Over months and years, the compounding effect of consistent, focused work produces a life that looks, from the outside, almost magical. It is not magical. It is the predictable result of showing up, going deep, and doing it again the next day. You have the capacity. You have the potential. You have the goals and the dreams and the things you want to build. All you need is the focus to build them. 1 hour, one task, one session at a time. Start today. Start now. Lock in. If this landed for you, subscribe. I put out new videos every week on the mindset, habits, and disciplines behind building a life you're genuinely proud of. Drop in the comments, what is the single most important thing you want to use deep focus to build in your life right now? Career? Creative work? A skill? A business? Tell me. I'm reading everyone. See you next week.